Hello, welcome to another episode of The Art of Volunteering. Today we have one of my dear friends, Delores Connors. We've been friends for over 15 years, and I can't wait to hear her story of volunteering, both with organizations and on her own, where she brings volunteers together. She is an educator, she's an artist, she's written her own books. Delores, tell me about you. Let our listeners hear who you are.
Well, yes, Stormy is absolutely right that we have been friends, dear friends, for over 15 years. And the funny thing is, or the very interesting thing is that our friendship started somewhat through volunteering, right? Both of our children were in the Boy Scouts. And if you've ever been a Boy Scout mom, then you know that you show up to volunteer with the Boy Scouts community. So our friendship actually started that way. So it brings us full circle to this work that we're focusing on. So yes, my name is Delores Connors. I live in Bergenfield, New Jersey, and I am a school teacher. I teach reading. I love teaching reading. It is something that I just enjoy it. It brings me a lot of joy to be able to do. And the work that I'm committed to with volunteering is surrounded around that because it brings me joy. I mean, I think all of us who volunteer all have the same unspoken commitment that there's something about this that brings me joy to be able to do good for others, to be able to serve others, to be of service of a community where things are bigger than myself. And that's really important. So I grew up in New York, went to New York City public schools, went through colleges in New York City, Long Island University, NYU for a short period of time, Columbia for a short period of time, and in New Jersey, Fairleigh Dickinson, and really City College as well. I can't leave out City College, but all of that education, all through that work, um, volunteering has been a major part of my life. Watching people volunteer, whether they show up to volunteer and help tutor a student, or whether it's a university or college putting together a volunteer program where the students get to express, doing something outside of their campus life. So volunteering is just really, 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 it's important. We need it. Anytime that there's trouble in the world, it's easier to look for the help, right? Like there's trouble, there's problems, there's issues and concerns, and that doesn't stop. But anytime that we're exposed to it, we can always look beyond and say, you know what, someone's going to come in and help. There will be help, and I get to choose to be one of the people who help in my own way, or I witness and appreciate the ones who do show up to help. So volunteering is just overall a really good experience and practice for people. I have written two books that I'm really proud of, both self-published, both dealing with disabilities. So one, the first book, I Don't Want to Go, is to deal with a young man. The topic is a young man who's transitioning from a mainstream class into a special ed class, and he's reluctant to go into that new setting. And the other one is super dear to my heart. It has to do with autism. And it's spoken through the eyes of a child, just telling his mom that he loves her, right? And it looks like a different experience than just being able to verbally express, I love you, mom. Just living and having that free spirit. When I think about school settings, volunteers help a lot, right? They bring a lot to the school. They're giving their time and their energy. And I say their energy because the volunteers come in with a burst of energy that some of us don't have to offer at the time. And it's just so special. And when I think about social service agencies, the volunteers that are coming in and helping to support parents with what they need, and it's just all runs full circle. A major organization that I belong to, that I volunteer in, and I try to help and assist with fundraising is Total Equity Now. We call it 10. Um, and this is an organization that promotes literacy throughout Harlem, East and West Harlem. And we support libraries and librarians. In New York City public schools, there are a lot of schools who unfortunately do not have a librarian in their school. Some may not even have a library. So we try to bring awareness to that and try to support it as much as we can. And that organization means a lot to me. My parents are from Harlem, or they met in Harlem. So Harlem is just a really special place. And so I just, I love to volunteer. And there's something about volunteering. You just, it just feels like you're showing up for the right reason. You know, like that's just this way that you feel when you're out there, you're early, you're excited, you're like, yes, what can I do? And whoever's running the program is grateful to have the volunteer support. So yeah, it's wonderful.
For TENS, they do primarily community outreach into the schools and into what other nonprofits bring in awareness. How does that work? How do you get your message out, and how do you interact with the students?
Right. So for Total Equity Now, we do reach out to other nonprofit organizations, letting them know that we are here to support them with their literary needs. We do touch and reach to public school systems throughout New York. Also letting them know that the service that we provide of literacy support through donating books and supporting libraries and librarians, that we're there for them. Other ways that we promote is we do have a social media page that we're starting to really pick up and give some energy to. So you can find us on Total Equity Now through Instagram and through Facebook. We're in the process of trying to think of creative ways to fundraise because funds are important. You know, it's nice to volunteer and show up, but there are some things that
just require money. Yeah.
So we're working on how to set up funding for the support, and that's pretty much where we're at. The pandemic has had something of a hindrance on us being able to really get out there and promote and to have events that people get to show up to and you know, provide that in-person interaction. But we're working on it. And so, yeah, just look for us, Total Equity Now, Facebook, Instagram, and you'll see, you know, a little bit more about what we're about and what we do.
Is there an opportunity for people to volunteer with you? Do you have space for volunteers?
So absolutely. So every year we host a march. The march is once a year, and we travel from the east side of Harlem, the west side of Harlem, and we kind of gather. It's like this huge parade that just, you know, one group meets on the east, the other meets on the west, and we kind of just merge together at the central location. But throughout that, we do have volunteers that are walking with us, handing out literature, just reminding and letting people know what we stand for. So we definitely use volunteers for that. We host a wonderful book drive during the holiday month, and we got to select and sort and, you know, send out those books. So we definitely are always looking for volunteers to support with that as well.
Awesome. Now you do other things besides TENS, right? What else do you do?
So a social enterprise that I also love and is near and dear to my heart is Right to Matter. So Right to Matter is a specialty greeting card for people who are dealing with the process of incarceration or loss. And the greeting card is for that loved one, the family member or loved one of someone who just lost someone dear to them. Now, it's a very soft space to tread because you are acknowledging that you're aware that someone is going through something very painful. for something that's not very comfortable to go into someone's business about. If someone has been incarcerated or dealing with some kind of rehab situation, you don't want to pry on someone's business. You don't want to infringe on anyone's personal space. But at the same time, you want to acknowledge someone's hurt because you know that they are experiencing loss. And it's a loss that they don't want to share out loud, but you know that it's there for them. So these greeting cards kind of say something to that for that family member. There's also a greeting card in that line for students. The parents may be incarcerated and they want to remain and have that relationship with that parent. And so, it's really about providing communication. So that organization is near and dear to my heart. And we have opportunities to volunteer during Mother's Day. We're going to be at Rikers Island handing out cards and candy to everyone, right? If it's the CO on their way to work, whether it's the bus driver who's, shuffling people to go visit someone, or if it's the person visiting someone on Mother's Day, however you showed up at that particular space, we want to say we're there for you. It's just an uncomfortable situation. So if we can give you a card and something sweet, just to make that day a little bit more, softer, we want to do that. So we have volunteers that come in for that. And then we're also working on a project that we're going to need volunteers for. It's a Father's Day project where we will be taping fathers, fathers, not just young, incarcerated fathers reading a children's book to their child and videotaping that. So there's some volunteerism that's gonna, come in with that. And then we're always, not always, but for the past few years, we've been at Governor's Island, just showcasing work from art from prisons all throughout the United States and Canada. And sometimes we need volunteers to show up and just be there to be there to just not, to explain the art pieces, but just to be there for people and welcome them in and just say hello. This is a nice welcoming space. So yeah, those are things that I'm connected to that, volunteerism definitely ingrained in them, and it's what makes it work. So
for you personally, why do you volunteer? Why do you give of yourself to each of these three impactful organizations or opportunities? Why? What in your heart wants you to do this?
It's a good question, and it's very simple for me because someone did it for me. I can think back to my own life and things that were meaningful to me. I watched somebody just give of themselves, give of their service. The Sunday school teacher doesn't get to be the Sunday school teacher. She shows up out of her heart and she's giving of service. And so that was my first example of watching someone give and how important it was and seriously took it and how much I benefited from it. Women in my community would pull together, a girl group and have us learn about nutrition and, self-esteem and those kinds of things. And those were women giving up their Saturdays and just wanting us, to the young women in my community, to go out in the world and be as good as we could be. And that was their time. That was their service. That was and they just gave. And I've witnessed other things where I've just seen the happiness on people's faces when they're volunteering. They just looked happy. I mean, they were, it was amazing. I was like, I like that look. I like that look of how that person is showing up ready to be of service. And so for me personally, I've seen it throughout my own life, benefited from it. And, I just get to watch it now, and it brings me a lot of joy.
That's awesome. I know you do a lot. You are an extremely busy woman. What does that look like in your family? Do you bring your family in tow, or are they, you go and do, and you tell us the stories. How does your support group look to encourage you to do this volunteering? Because everyone has a different setup. I was just curious what yours looks like.
Right. So it looks different at different times, right? So
Okay.
sometimes the family they're all down to go and and support. And then sometimes it's just support from a distance where they're like rooting for you. Oh, good luck with that, and and that's fine too. That part is just that part is important too, right? Because when we volunteer, we are giving. So we are taking ourselves away from something else. So, I fortunately at a time in my life right now where I don't have a young person to have to tend to.
Right.
And so that allows me some time to be able to flexibility to do what I like. But my family is 100% support of me being of service, right? And that support looks differently. Like I said, it could be a head nod, a thumbs up, a big hug, or it could be, do you need me to move this crate? I'll show up. But it just depends. But the support is there. And so I so appreciate that. And volunteers understand that. Like their outside system is important too. And
Yes.
when you have it, it allows you to be able to navigate in those spaces very comfortably. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. All right.
um, we are talking like basically what's most gratifying to you. What do you find is the most challenging part of being a volunteer or showing up in these spaces? What's most challenging?
Yeah, saying no, right? Like
Saying no.
saying no, right? Like you could just because that there's a need. So it's like, how could I not say yes to it? She needed me. But at the same time, you're like, wait, but I overbooked myself. I just, I just did this and that. So that I think is a challenge of just, having the insight to know like what you can't do, right? Like this just doesn't work for me right now. And, let me wish it to its best, but I can't do that right now. So saying no is a bit of a challenge for me.
And but it's also knowing what your self limitations are is so important for the organizations that you're working with, because they need you, but they need you to be able to do it. And if you're overextended, you're not going to be able to give them what they need from you. Like,
Yes,
yeah, so
yeah,
that's
definitely. Knowing your strengths in that space is really important, right? Because that's when you're going to get your best service, knowing
right.
what you really are capable of doing and then knowing what you can. And
That's
so,
true. All right, I'm going to open it up to you. I want you to love on your organization or all of them. Just love on them. Let me hear you.
yeah, I will start with 10. Um, Reading is just important. I don't even know how to make it small and say that a book, a story, I'll even break it down to a sentence. It can save somebody's life, can change somebody's life. It is that transformative, the power of words. So 10, being out here in a community saying, listen, do this. You can do this. You can read. You have support reading. Reading is important. It's enjoyable. It's relaxing. It's all those wonderful experiences that you get to have. Do it. We're here for you. So 10, I love because we are reminded of historically a practice that once we were not granted. And I say we as in Black people, illegally not being allowed to read. And here we are saying, yes, we are. This is what we can do now, and this is what you should enjoy doing. You can enjoy it. And all the resources that you need, we're helping to support you to be able to do that. So that's my love for 10. And yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram, and yeah, that's where we're at. And Right to Matter, I just love, just because communication is again extremely important. and people who are hurting for whatever reason, to bring a bit of relief or comfort to them is really important.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being my guest. It's always a pleasure when we get to spend time together, and sometimes our schedules don't allow that, but I've seen you pop in and pop out. It's like, was she even here?
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, Delores, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back on in the future.
Of course, thank you. And thank you for this work, right? Thank you for reminding all of us of just how important this is, and to stop and pause and think about how does this come together. So thank you for allowing this space for us. Yeah.
Have a great day.